What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wing and Tail Boys podcast, your Northeast hunting and fishing destination. I'm Chris.
And I'm Angelo.
And we're your hosts. Join us as we navigate the woods and waters of the Northeast, sharing our passion for the outdoors.
Whether it's land management, outdoor recreation, hunting, or fishing, we're going to cover it all. With 40 plus years of experience in the Northeast, we'll provide insights, tips, and stories to help you make the most of your adventures and help you experience the wild.
So, tune in, grab your gear, and let's hit the woods together. And always remember, success is just a commitment away. What is going on, guys? Thank you for joining us here for another episode of the Wing and Tail Boys. I'm Chris.
And I'm Angelo.
And today is the day after Christmas. And we hope that you guys had a great Christmas yesterday. And we're recording this actually on Christmas Eve, which is actually pretty cool. So the day before, day after, and whatnot.
A white Christmas.
It is a white Christmas. I don't even remember
the last time it's been a white Christmas.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we've actually had a white Easter.
We might have.
We've had a white Christmas, or more recently than we've had a white Christmas.
I know we had a white Halloween a few years back, like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah,
which is just kind of crazy. But yeah, man, I mean, it's beautiful out up here where I am. Like I said, I'm in the woods, and it's just nothing but limbs and white, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's just my truck isn't liking the cold these days, so some days I go out in the morning and I don't know if my car's actually going to start in time for work or not. So it's like a little gamble, and I don't even have to waste money on it.
Yeah.
So, in light of the holiday, we're winding down at the end of the season. So we figured we'd just kind of talk to you. We'd handle a little housekeeping real quick, update you guys on some stuff, and then just give some of our opinions on some of the stuff that we've been noticing throughout the year, this year, and throughout the years in the past. Kind of almost like a shift in hunting culture, if you will, to an extent. But Ange, how you been doing lately? I know you've had some issues going on with your health and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still sidelined with what's going on. My neck has been on and off. I was trying to push it a little bit. I've been bird hunting, even though my doctors recommended against any stressful activities. As we all know, the
stressful.
Woods can tend to be stress releasing for us, or relieving stress for us. So, kind of been cooped up in the house. I took some time off. I've been just enjoying some rest before the holidays. And then, I've been doing some bird hunting, but, I almost actually re-injured myself the other day. I kind of, you're walking through the woods with a gun on your shoulder or in your hands, and you're switching from arm to arm. Last couple times we've gone out, there's been snow on the ground, so it's been hard trekking through. And the last 2 times specifically was snowing while we were hunting. So, I mean, you just got the extra weight on you. You got the extra clothing to keep you warm. So it's, after, you're walking around for a couple hours, you kind of start to get tired. So I could feel that my neck and my shoulder was being fatigued a little bit. And then later that day, I was moving something and I felt like it just was really still tender. So I now we got the end of the year going on. There is winter bow that we could potentially do, but I'm probably just going to opt out for this year and just kind of finish getting healthy and just prep for next year. We definitely want to try to do some off-season stuff, maybe some hiking and some camping. And then, for the spring, I want to be ready to go to get into some fishing, some turkey, and, just shifting my gears to try to prep and get ready for next year. With just, how the end of the year kind of went for us, and for me specifically, it just wasn't really how I wanted. We capped it off with a nice 8-point buck in New York to hit another leg of the tri-state trifecta. We didn't end up getting the 3rd state this year. So it looks like Kevin Creeley ran away with it this year for the tri-state trifecta. Congratulations to him.
And there's still some time here in PA, man. License is good till June.
We'll see. But, looks like we're just going to probably tone it down and then try to see if we can't find some target bucks for next year. Get some cameras out, get some stuff repositioned. I know you're excited about getting some stuff done in Pennsylvania to really start moving and getting to the next level in Pennsylvania, since it's a new area for you.
Yeah.
And so that's that prep.
Just a thought, and I know it's really hard to do. Like I'm pretty spoiled with the dog, and I'd like to get your kind of your insight on hunting over hunter a couple weeks ago when we went out, because you've never gotten to before. But one of the things that has made it a lot easier for me to spend time in the woods is when I'm using a break open over under or a side by side. I like to throw it over my shoulder, and again, I'm spoiled because I have the dog, and he'll go on point, and that gives me the time to take the gun off my shoulder, close the gun, and get set up. You know what I mean? But I don't have to worry about switching it from shoulder to shoulder. So
I
just a
mean, I
thought
do the
maybe
same
as
thing.
you're
Like
going
I
through the
said, it's
woods.
just about the length of time that you're in the woods. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You
yeah,
can only hold it on one hand for so long, or then you're switching, and then you're out of it on your shoulder. Then you switch it to the other shoulder. So
yeah. So what were your opinions on hunting over hunter? I mean,
I
it
mean, I've
was
hunted over
it was
dogs before, but the only thing is, like, when we've hunted over dogs, it was for your bachelor party, and we went on that nice trip out to New York, and we hunted a nice property there. They had birds, and we had a bunch of different groups go out into different parts of the property, and they had different dogs, so we had different experiences as far as the dogs that they provided. But it was my first experience with dogs, and it almost felt like the dogs knew where the birds were. And I didn't really have any experience of hunting with dogs before, so it kind of almost, in my opinion, was for me like maybe the dogs are just so familiar with the property, they just know where to look, because birds tend to go, where it's brushed in, or maybe
mhm.
there's some overhanging limbs and stuff like that. So when you go in these fields, a lot of times they kind of know where they repeatedly find birds. So I'm sure that there's some aspect of, repetition to it when you're hunting the same fields over and over and over again, rather than maybe a person who owns their own dog who travels around and kind of, you're finding them in different spots all the time, so the dog's not trained to go and look in one area over and over and over again. Um, Hunting with your dog was the only other experience I've had with dogs, and I mean, we put some miles in.
Yeah.
We had gone the day after they had stock. So in New Jersey, they let us know when they stock, and we didn't hunt on the day that they stocked. I hunted the previous day, and me and you went the day after. Mike's doing crazy stuff. Can you hear that interference?
Not really. You sound right. I can hear that though.
Yeah, I'm getting some interference here. Last time you said you weren't able to hear it, but there it goes. It's gone.
Yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
getting.
So I mean, hunting over hunter, your dog is only the second experience I've had with hunting over dogs. And again, like I said, we put some miles in. I had hunted the day before when they stocked, and we went the day after. So you weren't really expecting to see that many birds. You would assume that the hunters kind of disturbed where the birds might have been, and either they took off and flew and were either further in the woods and harder to find, or they were harvested. So we got there, and we had walked for like an hour and 45 minutes, and we hadn't really seen anything. And we've already done our criticism, so I won't go down the rabbit hole, but we've done our criticism of the stocking job that New Jersey's done.
For the pheasant
When we
hole in
did
this
end up
case.
finding pheasant, it ended up being that they were calling to each other, and they were grouping up right in the middle of the road, like
Yeah.
right in the middle of the road. So they couldn't have been that far off the road when they had been stocked. So, overnight, they probably got a little bit of agitated. Maybe they were starving. They got up, they started grouping up. And what ended up happening was your dog hadn't hunted in a while, and he was so excited to even see birds that as soon as we found them, he took off after them. And they went one in each direction,
Yeah.
flying.
I mean, it was
Fine. One
three,
flew
three.
down the road. We tried to look and see if we could follow it with our eyes. We followed it. We kind of saw where it went. And then another two kind of cut in and went to our left. And
Yeah.
so
I
they
mean,
were
it had
pretty
been three
spread out.
years. It had been 3 years since he's seen a bird, and
Yeah.
like I even told you going into it, I was like, I'm not gonna try to be too hard on him. Like I just want him to get out and have a good time. And man, when he took off, it was like he was fucking headed for the races, man.
Yeah. And he almost caught one right out of the air
He
by
did,
himself.
but
So
it hit the freaking limb. That bird hit the limb and like fell out of the
fell
out
out
of
of
the
the sky, and
sky.
he was able to almost even get on it right there. But I mean, so they ended up getting spread out. So we knew at that point, we knew where some birds were. We kind of knew the general location. We were able to kind of direct Hunter kind of where to go, and we started hunting. And I mean, it was unbelievable to see him work after at that point. I mean, he was in and out. I mean, you could tell he was following scent. He wasn't just at that point. We had already been hunting over him for an hour and a half, and you can tell he was searching. He was finding little birds, and he was scaring off like little smaller birds, and ones that we're not targeting. And then when he kind of got that scent, he knew what he was looking for. He was all over them. We found one bird, I think, within like 5 minutes, the closest one to us. And then we knew we had to kind of do some traveling to kind of get over to where the other two flew to. But I
Yeah,
mean, when he was close, he stopped on a dime. I think he even actually skid a little bit. He
skid.
stopped so fast. Like the leaves, like he slid right over the leaves and he stopped. I mean, he was boom
Yeah.
and just
See now that
instantly just turned his head and was locked in.
that moment right there, that boom, is like my favorite for someone who's never hunted with a pointer before. Because like people, you'll go out and people have this idea of a pointer, like, oh, they're gonna find a bird and they're just gonna, let you know where it's at. When you start hunting and the dog, gets a little birdie and stops in a place and starts sniffing or pauses to look back at you to see where you are as the handler, and people will go, oh, is that a bird? Is he on a bird? And I'm like, no, no, no. You'll know when he's on a bird. And then all of a sudden he just put the brakes on like
No,
pretzel.
yeah.
That
It was like
that first one
flipping
was
a
like,
switch.
oh man, and it's so incredible to see it. And it's been a little while. Like I said, it's been a while since I've gotten him out in the woods, unfortunately, with life and time and everything getting in the way. And it's just so incredible to see how I spent so much time training him. And probably the formal training that we did stopped at about 3, 4 years old. He's 11 years old now. He'll be 11 in March. So, 6 years, we'll say, of no formal training. And within 20 minutes of being in the woods, he remembered exactly what
I
to
mean,
do.
he was unbelievable.
And for me as a handler, the coolest thing to see is the dog working, and every, minute or two, he'll stop moving and look and try to make eye contact with you. And it was really awesome to see that he would see you and he would still look around until he saw me, because he knew that I was the one that he needed to pay attention to. And then once he saw me, he'd, zigzag back and forth and come back in front of us. And he, he
Yeah.
always he
I think
always
after
made
that first
contact.
bird, though, I think he realized I was the one hunting, not you.
Well, yeah, and it's not just that; it's a matter of holy shit, there are birds here,
Yeah.
and you had
But
shot that
because
one
when
when
we
we
got
first
to the
got there.
second and third bird, the second bird that we got to, he waited for you to flush it. The
Yep,
third bird, when we were there, you weren't
he wanted
close.
he wanted to creep a little bit, and
But
I had
you
to like
weren't
grab him.
close.
Yeah,
He knew I
yep,
was there, and he knew that he could flush it because he knew. I think he knew at that point. I don't
yeah.
need to wait for Christopher to flush. I can flush because Christopher's not the one hunting.
See the different. He's not supposed to flush.
I know he
He
might not
he
supposed to be. What
like
I'm
not
saying,
not,
I
not never
think he
mind.
was. You could be
Yeah,
right. He either was over eager.
he wants that bird.
Yeah.
he wanted. He's like, I worked my ass off. I want that bird. And we were talking about it, like in that moment. The two, 3 birds that he found and pointed. In that moment, we both looked at each other. We're like, shit, want another dog.
Yeah, I mean, I was instantly thinking about buying a
you
dog.
know. No, so that was great. And the real sad part for me these days is he literally took 4 days to recover. That day he was fine. The next morning he woke up, his back legs were so sore he could barely get up. And then it got progressively better. It wasn't until we went out on what, Wednesday? It
Hmm.
wasn't until Saturday morning that he was kind of back to normal. So that tells me it's either one of two things. Either he needs to get out and get more exercise, which I'm sure is part of it, or is he starting to get to that age where I can only take him out once a week, and maybe I can only take him out for an hour and a half at a time instead of the 3, 4 hours that we put in. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's kind of like a wake up call, bittersweet, kind of sad kind of thing. So
Yeah.
just got to keep that in mind moving forward, and hopefully I can get him out in PA. They're still stocking some birds in PA, but
No, yeah.
for
I mean, it
me,
was great. It was great to hunt with him, and it was great. It really is honestly like we talk about, and we're going to get into it a little bit. I know, but we're talking about people trying to get an edge, people trying
yeah,
to find a way to either cut a corner or whatever it is. And I'm not saying hunting with a dog is, but man, I'll tell you, if a lot of dogs are able to do what he was able to do, it honestly almost is like cheating. I mean, it's like he's not miss. I felt like he's not missing it because we knew that those birds flew so far and they could have
Mm-hmm.
been anywhere. Like
Yep.
we saw them fly at least a couple hundred yards down the road, and then they were still high in the air and
And
turned, and
cut
they
in.
went deep in the woods. It's not like we saw where they landed, and then we just waited for him to find it. We had
Yeah.
no clue where they were. They could have been
And we had
anywhere.
just walked through there. Within the hour. We had walked through both spots where we found those birds. So we knew
Yeah.
that they weren't birds that were already there.
No, yeah. I
You
mean, they
know,
definitely were not birds that were already there, and they were of the
when,
same species of the ones that we had just found. It would have been a
yeah.
very big coincidence for that. I mean, if it was a
So
completely different species, if it was a hen bird as
a
opposed
hen
to,
bird instead of
and
a
they were
cock
three
bird or something.
cockbirds that we
Yeah.
saw, I mean, we would have known it was different.
Yeah. And the first time I really realized just how great Hunter was as a dog, we were in the same place where we were hunting, last week, and it was maybe his first hunting season. And a bird flew, like, another group of hunters kicked a bird up from one of the fields across the road, and the bird flew high over the pine trees, came down and landed at the end of that field that's along the road where we start, where our friends like to start. And Hunter didn't see the bird land. I did. So we went over to it. I started working towards it. And as soon as Hunter caught that ground scent, man, he took off. That bird was wounded. It never flew again. And he literally was just gone for whoever knew how long ago it was. But he had chased it down and came back with a bird.
Yeah.
It was just the coolest thing. So started to do a change. Did you change
Yeah,
did you
I had
change
to
your microphone or
unplug my
something?
mic. I keep getting this interference thing, so hopefully that
Okay.
doesn't ruin anything.
Oh, your mic's pretty loud now. That's all right. I can fix that. I'll fix it in the
I
end.
can lower the input on my mic.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're definitely going to get into the hunting with dogs thing because there's two different angles I kind of want to take that on. But for me so far, we actually just got our first picture of a deer in New York in probably 2 or 3 weeks. Every picture we've gotten has been a coyote or just snow falling. The deer seem to have completely vacated our property, which is just absolutely insane. So hunting in New York, even though the season ends now in a week, I've already been checked out of New York for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Ever since I shot that doe, I went back the following week. I did some walking, did some tracking, found a deer, and other than that, I haven't even thought of going back to New York to hunt. Uh, as far as Jersey is concerned, technically I could still hunt, and I might, since that license is still going to be good for fall if I wanted to go out for bow. But for me in PA, I can hunt here until I got to check the exact date, but I know I can hunt into January. And just recently, I was driving down the road and I saw a beautiful thicket. And when I say a beautiful thicket, I mean it's got to be like a 30, 40 acre thicket that you can see. And then everything around it is all oak flat. And the thicket seems to be on a flat, like a high flat spot, dropping down into where all those oaks are. So this week, I'm off until the second. I might go take a sit or two and just go throw a sit out there, maybe see if I can find some tracks in the snow now and do a little bit of scouting for next year while I'm hunting. But most of my focus at this point has been transitioned into the renovations on the house, getting stuff ready for the baby coming. This past weekend, we just had the floors put in. I don't know if you could hear a little bit of a difference in the echo in my audio, but I'm hoping that the new floors that got put in are going to help with that just a little bit. I still have to finish the walls. I have to put up some wood paneling around the walls. Underneath my arm here, you can see that. Where is it? You can see this brown line here. Everything from the brown line down is gonna be wood paneling. So I'm hoping that helps out with it too. But outside of that, man, it's what, December 24th. We have 3.5 months until the baby comes. I still have to paint the bedroom. I still have to do all the painting of the trim. Got to do this stuff in here, and then some little knickknacks around the house. So um, hoping to be able to get that done before Easter weekend when she comes, and hopefully that'll give me some smooth sailing into the season. I still want to get some turkey hunting in the spring. The beautiful part with the property having the cabin to be at, and especially for turkey, everyone knows you go out turkey hunting in the morning. You don't really turkey hunt in the afternoon. So I can get out on a
Well, in
Sunday
New
morning
Jersey, you have to be out of the woods by noon.
by noon. Yeah, exactly. So I could go turkey hunt for 2 or 3 hours in the morning and then get back to the house and still be able to give my wife a hand with the baby and still have the time to go out Sunday too. Like that's the beautiful part of having the cabin is New York. You can hunt Saturday, Sunday all year round. Doesn't matter what the season is. And we have the family there to kind of help out, with the baby as well. So um, that's great. My biggest problem is I'm having a hard time finding somewhere to shoot where it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg. So this time of year, if I'm going to go out hunting, it's going to be the bow. I haven't shot it in a few weeks, so I definitely want to make sure that the bow is still on before I go hunting with it. So I got to figure something out with that. But hopefully, next week, I think next week I go back to work, right? Next week is the second Tuesday. Yeah, I go
Well,
back next
it's the end
Thursday.
of next week.
Yeah, I go back next Thursday. So I'm hoping maybe like Monday, Tuesday, I could get a sit in or, check out the weather and see maybe there's another, slight cold front coming through where, I can hunt the front of that or the back of that. But with that all being said, we're going to start touching on some, changes in hunting culture that we've been noticing over the last few years. Hunting with dogs, stalking programs, drives. Just want to touch on a couple of those things and kind of give our opinion. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick few seconds and just thank some of our sponsors. So take a second to listen and we'll be right back. If you're anything like me, you love to customize your bow while always making sure everything is just spot on. That's why I trust Anthony and Chris over at Big D Custom Pro Shop. They're located on Route 15 in Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey, and they have everything you need to tune your bow. And I promise you're going to leave there with a smile on your face. So, if you live in northern New Jersey, give my boy Big D a shout for all your archery needs. Also in northern New Jersey, Andover Hunt and Fish is your destination for all your outdoor and shooting needs. Located on Route 206 in Andover, New Jersey, they have everything you need for hunting, fishing, camping, gun exchanges, and more. Gerald, the owner, has been very good to us with his support for our channel, and we have no doubts that you'll have the same experience. Head on over to Andover Hunt and Fish today and let them know the Wing and Tail Boys sent you. When I head out to the woods, I have to know that I have the best performing equipment that I can afford. So that way I'm the only variable that I have to worry about. That's why I trust Fire Knock products for all my arrow and bow accessory needs. From arrow components to bow accessories like stabilizers and arrow rests, they have what you need. Dorge won't put anything on the market if it doesn't perform 50% better than what's already out there. So head on over to fireknock.com today to see what they're all about. All right. So, one of the big things we talked about when we were out pheasant hunting last week is how we felt like when we were younger, everyone kind of had their spots on the road where they would park. And it wasn't, this is my spot, this is your spot, this is your spot. But it was a common courtesy of if you get there first, that's where you're walking in. You got there first, that's where you're walking in, and so on and so forth, right? But what we've been noticing over the last few years is, people will park 50 yards down the road from you and cut you off at a 45-degree angle, kind of cut into the fields and try to get out there in front of you. Specifically, we're talking pheasant hunting. But I've also started to notice it with deer hunting as well. Where you'll be parked somewhere, you'll talk to somebody, and next thing you know, that person is hunting your area or parking in your spot. What's your take on all that? How do you feel? Have you seen it affect you in the past or recently? Have you seen a change in just hunter ethics along the way? What's your take on all that?
I mean, I don't want to get too sinister here, but I think I've also seen a shift in the climate of what's going on in this country. I think that people have just kind of been a little bit more concerned with getting their own share of what they want or what they think they deserve, and not being too worried about other people. And I think that that's really not really something that is really that great for us going forward. I really honestly think that as much as we can, we should be looking to help one another, because when push comes to shove, we're gonna be all that each other has. When it comes to deer hunting, though, when we talk about the courtesy, I mean, you're talking about being in an open space with firearms and weapons, right? Whether it's crossbow, compound bow, shotgun, rifle, muzzleloader. I mean, there's definitely potential for people to get hurt. And we've seen horror stories where people have gotten into arguments and have used those weapons against each other, which is the extreme and
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. It should never get to that point. And
Unacceptable. Yeah.
most states, especially a lot of these other states that we live in now, that we're going to now start hopefully expanding into, but the ones that we hunt now, specifically in the tri-state area, people are concealed carrying now, and it wasn't always that case. So in addition to just, you could be next to your truck in the parking lot with no weapon in your hand, and someone has a weapon ready available. And again, that should be the very last resort. I mean, you should be on the verge of death before that becomes a thought in your mind. But it's still a problem that can be, rise to the top pretty fast. I mean, tempers flare and people, and again, we haven't experienced that this year. I'm just saying, just that's the extreme. We'll cover that first. But other than that, I mean, people just don't seem to care for other people's, hunting or space or whatever it is. And again, like you said, we don't own the woods. You can go anywhere you want, and you're entitled to go anywhere you want. If you cut me off, and let's say I'm in a bow stand and I'm in a tree stand, and you come walking through, and your hunting style is to be walking and stalking, or spot and stalking. I mean, there's nothing I can do as a hunter in the tree. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's a lot of
Especially if they don't
hunters.
see you.
Yeah,
Especially if they don't see you in the tree.
but there's a lot of hunters like, listen, like if you're walking through stealthily, I honestly don't care. I really honestly don't care. If I'm in a tree stand and I'm hunting, and that was my chosen hunt style for that day, I've done it to people. I've been the one spotting and stalking, or, tracking or whatever else. And I've walked up on other people's hunting setups. I mean, for me, as soon as I see that, I'll back out and I'll kind of make a big hook and kind of try not to disturb them. I'll look at the wind direction and make sure that I'm not going upwind from them. I make sure that I stay downwind from them. But that's just me. But as long as someone's being stealthy, I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a predator walking by. It could be a coyote. It could be, anything else. That's just what happens in the woods. You know what I mean? Whether it's public
Yeah.
land or whatever, it's just you can never expect everything. You always have to expect the unexpected.
Sure.
So a guy walking through is to be expected at some point.
Yeah.
There's
And
a lot
honestly,
of
when that
hunting properties that we hunt in this area where recreation is allowed. There's people walking their dogs.
yeah.
They're not always on the trails. There's people who like walking off the trails.
Yeah.
You got squirrel hunters. They don't care about deer hunters.
And I'll give you a little story, I guess. When I was younger, hunting, ironically, where we go pheasant hunting, I remember hunting there one time, and a group of horseback riders came riding through, and I was literally, they literally came right underneath my tree.
I mean, we see them almost
So
every weekend when we bird hunt still to this day. I mean,
yeah,
they have the horse farm up the road,
right.
and they do.
Now I used to say I used to say hello. I used to just be cordial. Hey, how you doing? This time I scared the crap out of the horse and it threw the rider. Another time, two bike riders were coming under my tree, and I said hello, and that guy fell off his bike because I scared the shit out of him. So I used to just say hello, be cordial, be courteous, be kind, and just whatever, move on. Now I don't even bother saying anything. You know, more so for two reasons. One, I don't want to hurt anybody or startle anyone or anything like that, but I also don't want to give my spot away. You know what I mean? Like if that person just happens to is a hunter, but they're just walking that day, I don't need them to know where I'm hunting. You know, what really gets me more than those people, because people, again, we share the woods, right? So if we want to be left alone while we're hunting, we need to leave people alone while they're recreating, and hopefully we can all get along. What really grinds my gears are the people who aren't supposed to be in the woods. People riding quads when you're not supposed to be riding quads in the woods. People riding snowmobiles when you're not supposed to be riding. Because in Jersey, you're not allowed to anywhere on state land. Pennsylvania, there's some places where you're allowed to. I'm not really sure about New York if you're allowed to or not. But like that really frustrates me. When I take the time to walk in the woods and to be stealthy and to be quiet and to climb a tree and for the deer not to know I'm there, and then my quiet, peaceful time is ruined by some asshole freaking revving a quad riding through the trails, that bothers me. It does. They shouldn't be there. That's my
No,
hot
yeah,
take.
I mean, I agree. I mean,
You know,
if it's not allowed and you're breaking the law, or you know what I mean,
right?
it's
It
frustrating,
it
especially
seems
when it's
like
something that makes a ton of noise and is disturbing
yeah,
and could potentially ruin, the fact that, I know you're recreating, but so am I, and you know, my recreation does not hinder you from what you're doing in any way.
right.
But you
It
could
seems like
potentially ruin my entire day and potentially my season. What if,
right,
you know what I mean? What if my target buck was coming to me that day and now it got
and you
scared
bump
away
it.
and I never see that target buck again?
Yeah, it just seems like us as hunters have to step out of the way for everybody else. Oh, you want to come ride your horse through here? No problem. I won't be here. Oh, you want to ride your quad through here? No problem. And it seems like hunters, when we break the law, the book is thrown at us. When everybody else
I mean,
breaks
we
the
shouldn't
law,
be
and
breaking the law, but
no,
I know what
we
you're saying.
shouldn't be. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm saying is we're scrutinized. It's like we're looked at under a microscope. You better make sure you're following the rules, and then somebody who's not a hunter breaks a non-hunting rule, and that's all okay because we're supposed to share the woods. It's just, and I'd be curious to know if people in other parts of the country have this situation too, or is it just the area that we're from where it's not really a part of the culture? Let's be honest.
I
Hunting
mean,
isn't a part of the culture where
I've
we're
seen a
from.
ton of stories. I've seen people be disrupted in the woods by almost everything. I've even seen people be interrupted in the woods by demonstrations and protests, which you wouldn't even think would be happening.
Oh
But
my
people
God.
walking through. I mean, again, like I said, there's a lot of times where we're hunting near, whether it's highways or roads or trails. A lot of times there's hunting property where the sign is where the sign is, the animals are where they are. If you patterned an animal that likes to walk close to a main road, and then you go and you hunt on the weekend, and then all of a sudden there's a demonstration happening, I mean, how could you have possibly foreseen that? You know what I
Sure.
mean? And a lot of times when we're deer hunting, we're walking in the woods before the sun comes up. So, we've already wasted a lot of our time
Yeah.
in that day for then at 9 o'clock, a group of people to come in and make a disturbance, or a guy ride by in a quad, or,
Yeah.
something like that.
And the big difference there is if someone is having a legal organized demonstration, they're having it on the road or at the entrance to a trail or something, right? Where they're legally allowed to be, that's great. That's what this country was built on. Freedom of speech. You make your point, I make mine, and everybody's happy. Where it becomes a problem, and I know you and I talked about this. I don't know if we mentioned it on a previous podcast, but how about the people who decided to go in the woods and just start throwing food everywhere? Because that's been happening in Jersey. People have been going into the woods and throwing food scraps and donuts and pizza crusts and cake. They've been throwing all this shit throughout the woods so bear hunters can't hunt because you can't hunt within 100 yards of a bait pile. And anywhere that there's food that isn't natural, it's considered a bait pile. Like that's the shit that that grinds my gears. How could you have such a problem with how I choose to spend my spare time that you're going to take time out of your day to go and sabotage? And why aren't these people being having the book thrown at them? That's the shit that grinds my gears. And what
Yeah.
do we say as hunters? You know what? We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We don't want to cause more problems for ourselves. So you know what? I'll just go find somewhere else to hunt. To me, that's fucking ridiculous.
I mean, it gets ridiculous. I mean, there definitely needs to be a little bit more support. I know that there's probably not as many people in the industry of being game wardens or park rangers or stuff like that to be able to man so much of the properties. Obviously, they're not going to be able to be in the woods with us whenever we're going. A lot of them patrol the roads and they patrol the outside. Um, so, I mean, anything like that is almost impossible to be seen. A lot of these people who are doing some of these nefarious things, they usually own or have access to property that borders the land that they're doing these protests or nefarious things on. And then it makes it a little bit easier, specifically the people who ride quads and snowmobiles. I mean, that's like probably the smallest thing, but kind of the thing we encounter the most.
Yeah, the most
Most
common.
of those people, they just come right out of their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then they just go right into their backyard, or they just go into another friend's yard, or maybe that's a kid going from his house to his friend's house and then back later. Um, it is what it is. But we kind
Yeah.
of sideswiped a little bit and went down a different tangent. But as far as the hunter courtesy, when it comes to what we've experienced, And I just want to, focus back on the experiences we've had. Specifically in the last couple of weeks, we talked about the bird hunting was where we had experienced most of it. And again, like I said, you can walk wherever you want. But if I'm lined up already, usually everyone does that as it's winding down. Usually we have a set start time. It's sunrise. So the book will tell you when sunrise is, and then at that time you can start hunting. And usually a guy will line up on the road edge, and when the time comes, he's just going to walk straight into the woods from where he is. For guys to walk on an angle at that time early in the morning like that and start walking in people's shooting lanes, first of all, it's unsafe. Second of all, now it's like, okay, well, now I can't shoot because I don't want to be unsafe. But now you have full range to be able to shoot where I would have been able to shoot, and now where you can shoot. So it's like they're taking over areas because they want to make sure that they're getting the bird. And a lot of it's coming from, and unfortunately I have to say this because, the other people that are there, we've known for close to a quarter of a century, maybe more. It's people that we've never seen before. And it's like, I can understand if maybe you had been here a couple times and then you've kind of realized how people hunt. And then you've said, hey, listen, I'm being squeezed out and I don't have a chance in the morning because, it's not rocket science to figure out. A lot of times when we hunt, we're finding pheasant concentrated in these areas, and those tend to be the areas where they release the birds from the stocking trucks. So there are certain spots that are a little bit hotter, especially in the morning until the birds get spread out. And then it's kind of, you'll find them anywhere and everywhere. But it's not even like, hey, listen, guys, is there any way that we can maybe line up in a way that's a little bit more efficient or what? They're just running in the woods and getting in front of people. You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, well, now you ran into the woods and then cut us all off. So now, we're all kind of screwed and we have to kind of wait for him to finish doing what he's doing, or we've got to maneuver and kind of go somewhere else.
Yeah. And as a dog handler, for me, it's terrifying because whenever I've welcomed so many strangers to hunt with Hunter. We're out bird hunting. I shot my limit. I still want him to get some work, and I'll run him for people that I've never met before. But I give them 3 rules. You don't shoot a bird on the ground. You wait until you can see the skyline under the bird to shoot, and you don't control my dog. Those are the 3 rules I give everybody, and if they can follow those, everyone is safe. But we've seen it before where it's people fighting over the same bird because of the way it's been over these last few years. So there's nothing that makes me feel that someone is going to see my dog and say, "Oh, can't shoot that bird that's running." They're still going to try to shoot at that bird. I would hope that if they saw the dog, they wouldn't. But for me as a handler, that's terrifying to the point where I used to hold Hunter back and I would wait 10 minutes to start hunting when I was hunting every week because it just wasn't worth it for me. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of guys that I know that they'll walk in by themselves to start the morning, and they'll leave the dog in the car, and then they'll go back in like 20 minutes, 30 minutes once guys have spread out, and then they go back through with the dog.
Yeah.
Just to be safe.
Yeah. And a lot of what we've been talking about kind of leads into my next question is like, do you feel that you're hunting when you're out hunting birds on a stocking program? And to preface, I'm not saying I'm against a stocking program. I love the fact that we're able to hunt. I love the fact that we're given an opportunity that we otherwise wouldn't have. But the whole, the birds are huddled up close to the road, or, you don't really have to go searching for them if you know the general areas to look kind of thing. Or, birds just hunker up in a tree kind of deal. Like, do you ever get the sense that you don't feel like you're hunting when that's the experience?
I mean, a bird is a bird, right? Where do you find birds? You find them on the ground or you find them in trees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hunt with a dog. So wherever I see a bird, I see it, I shoot it. If it's at the, if it's on the lowest branch of the tree, it's a different story. If it's like 40 feet in the air at the very top of the tree where no one can ever get it to move, I'm going to take a shot. I don't care. I don't want to leave empty handed.
Yeah.
The resource is there. and it's there for me and for everyone else to harvest. And if I don't, someone else will, or no one will, and then it could
Mm-hmm.
spoil. So I'm not going to waste the resource.
Yep.
I will do what I can to make the chase as fair as possible. I don't really like shooting at birds on the ground, but as you were seeing when we were hunting with Hunter, they don't really like to get up.
No,
The
these
reason why they
birds.
got up is because Hunter's chasing them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then once they started running, he would, commit to the chase. And then once they realized that, hey, something's chasing me on the ground, they got up in the air.
Yeah.
But they
These
didn't
birds.
want to. They didn't want to fly. None of
No,
them just took off and flew right from the position they were in.
they're missing. They're missing that launch factor that I feel like
I
all
need
the
this guy
birds
to
had in
start
the
hunting.
past. Yep.
Come on, go get
put
him.
him. Put him up.
Bird would be bigger than he is.
Hey, you know what? Little dogs like that can get in and out of the brush, no problem. Hunter's a little bit bigger than.
Scared. My wife's mopping the floor, and he doesn't like.
Yeah, that's
He doesn't like the
that's great.
vacuum or the mop or.
Sure. The best hunting experiences, bird hunting experiences that I've ever had were when I worked at Buttonwood Game Preserve. If anybody here is from New Jersey, the New York area, Buttonwood Game Preserve in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Gail runs the place. She owns it. She runs it. Phenomenal, phenomenal person. Always willing to help you out. But when I used to work there, we were given free range of the property after hours. So once the last paying customer left for the day, she would let us take our dogs and go out and hunt. Even if we didn't have a dog, she'd let us take one of her dogs and just go out hunting. It was incredible. So it was still a stocking program, but there were so many leftover birds. And then because of all the hawks and the coyotes and stuff, every now and then, she would go and release some birds out into the field just so there were always birds out there, you know. And that to me was the best blend of as close as you can get to quote wild birds or true bird hunting on a stocking program. It was incredible. It wasn't uncommon for me to walk the fields at the end of the day and find 10 birds. It was amazing. I didn't know where the birds were. He didn't know where the birds were. They flew very well. It was awesome. And in that situation, when there are enough birds to go around, I never felt the need to have to shoot a bird on the ground because I always knew that there was another one, or I would just let it go hunker down and we'd go find it again, you know? But in those situations where I was hunting the fields, I can honestly say I don't think I ever, in the 4 years I worked there, I don't think I ever saw a single bird in a tree, which is baffling to me because we always find the birds in the tree where we go hunting, like, on the
Always.
state lands.
I mean,
So it's
I
just,
wouldn't say always, but more frequently than
yeah,
other times that we've hunted. I mean,
yeah,
there's always in our
so,
past been birds in the trees, but majority of them would be hunkered down somewhere.
right.
Now it seems like majority of them are in the trees.
Yeah, and I don't really have an answer to that. It's not like, I don't know the facility where they're being raised. I don't know if they have like places to perch inside the pens or whatever, but it's just interesting how, excuse me, it's interesting how same, pheasant is a pheasant is a pheasant, and depending on where you get them from, they behave differently and act differently. It's actually it's kind of cool in its own way. Do you have anything else to touch on with this? I want to get into the I guess the last
No, I
topic.
just say, there's, people can imagine for themselves. I'm
Well,
sure
there's two.
everyone
Yep.
in the community's got their own horror stories of people being inconsiderate.
Yep.
I just hope it's no one that listens to our channel is committing these felonies of
Yeah. I mean,
felonies of the woods.
right? Maybe felony. I could felony forestries. So what are your thoughts on hunting with a dog? And I know we talked about bird hunting in general, but it seems like these days, I'm going to give you a couple different perspectives that I've heard in the past. Using a dog to tree a bear is not hunting. Using a dog to tree a mountain lion and then shooting it is not hunting. Using a dog to push deer for you is not hunting. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's tough because that was kind of handed down. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that was kind of just coming to fruition now.
You're saying
I
generationally,
think
like that's been
generationally, it just when people migrated to the Americas from Europe, that was something that they did. They trained the dogs to find the animals because For them, it was, you needed to be efficient because you needed to be tending to your land, to your family, to your job, whatever it was. Spending time hunting was not thought of as leisurely. It was meant to help supplement their survival, right? They needed that meat. They needed that food to survive. Especially, people who were migrating west during the, population of America, when, the Europeans came to America and they started to migrate out west. You start to get into some of those harsher winter conditions. If you don't have food, you're dead.
Yeah.
So sitting in a tree all day, patterning a scrape is not efficient.
Right.
It's not. So having a dog be able to, encircle a certain area where you maybe presume deer to be, and congregating those deer towards a certain group of people that are then able to harvest them. A lot of these people work together, and then they shared the spoils of their hunt. So
Yep.
it wasn't like, oh, I want to go in there and I want to get a deer for myself. Communities were hunting together for the community. And, the men would go out and it was a mission to get food for the community.
Right.
And again, time is money. And we know that to be true even now. It just, the value of what they did it for back then wasn't for paper money. It was for, subsistence. And
Right.
it was their lifestyle. It's how they
Uh,
lived.
And I do that. I do that for hunter now. Dog food. Dog food ain't cheap, especially for a large breed who eats freaking like 4 cups a day. You know what I mean? Like that food goes. So I made a deal with Hunter years ago. I said, "You find me a bird, you get the legs." So um, you know, legs are delicious. Don't get me wrong. We grew up eating pheasant soup our entire lives. It's pretty much all our family made growing up with the pheasant. But man, do I hate cleaning them with all those freaking tendons and all that bullshit. So when I get home, I cut the legs off, de-skin them, and I just boil them. Just quick boil, a nice 5 minutes in the boil, peel them off the legs, and then he gets that supplemented into his food. And I believe, because when you cook the deer meat or the pheasant meat, it literally still smells like the bird. It's like the only meat that I know of that just stays the same smell no matter what stage it's on. And I like to believe that if he's eating it, he knows what to find next time. So
Yeah.
that's my thing with that. But that's I'm caught in the middle also. And what I'm gonna say is I don't I don't frown upon hunting with a dog, obviously. I have one. But outside of bird hunting, the way I will word it is it's not the type of hunting that I would do. So I'm going to give a perspective for maybe some of the listeners who are like, well, bear hunting with a dog isn't hunting. I'm going to give you a perspective. The hunting is, I can agree. Where what kind of hunting is it? If you let the dogs run, you follow them on a GPS, and then when the dog stops, you just walk to where the dog is, right? So people who only see that side of the argument, I understand it, but you got to look at it from the other side too. It took me years to train hunter. And then it becomes a whole different category of hunting in the sense of I'm not hunting alone. I'm hunting with my dog. We're working as a team, right? And you saw a little glimpse of it last week where some of that formal training has kind of faded away. And Hunter at times hunts for himself still. Remember, I told you, like, the whole training of a dog isn't to teach him how to hunt, it's to teach him that he's not hunting for himself. He's hunting for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And over time, if you're not reinforcing that, the instincts start to kick back in. So the hardest part of hunting with a dog is training him to hunt for you and to understand that that harvest isn't his harvest, it's your harvest. So looking at it from a handler standpoint, I can understand the time, the effort, the consideration that it takes to go in and train a dog to do a specific job. And which my dog doesn't do, dogs that are trained to hunt coyotes, rabbits, cats, bear. You literally let them go and trust your dog to be 10, 15 miles away from you and to know what their job is and to trust that they're going to work together. Like, to me, that's incredible. Not a type of hunting I would personally do. I don't know if I see the enjoyment in shooting a bear out of a tree, to be completely honest with you. but I also don't frown upon it. I don't. It's not something that I look at someone who does that and be like, how could you do that?
Yeah,
For
and
me,
this
it
comes up because we've mentioned it, I think, before, but there's been some controversy in the news lately about, specifically in Virginia, where it's still a big tradition down there to hunt with dogs. There's
yeah,
been some pushback, and most of the pushback is coming from other people who are private land hunters who are finding injured animals on their property, and they're attributing it to the inefficient hunting practices of hunting with a dog, and not because the dog is inefficient, but because the shot placement becomes inefficient at moving animals, running animals. You're not using single projectiles; you're using multi-projectile,
like
whether it's
buckshot.
buckshot or
Yeah,
whatever else. So there's a lot of injured animals that are there, and the people who aren't into hunting are really kind of annoyed at that animals are being injured and stuff like that, and
sure.
they're
And I mean,
saying
I
that it's
guess
not an efficient hunting style, and
yeah, I can
um,
see it. Dogs don't know property lines.
yeah,
I can
people are
see it.
having animals run onto their property, people's dogs run onto their property, not knowing property
Yeah,
lines.
yeah. So I can I can see I can see it. I can understand
I
why
mean,
it gets a
imagine
bad
if you're
rap.
on your private property
Yeah, yeah.
hunting deer and some
And someone's
dog comes
dog comes through.
sprinting through your property, barking, sniffing, running,
Yeah,
chasing, potentially chasing off animals that you're trying to harvest.
yeah. No, I get. Maybe the happy medium would be having the dog season at the end of the year. You get through the bow, you get through rifle, you get through muzzleloader, you get through all of the seasons that the majority of people want to hunt. Then let the dog hunters go. You know what I mean? That's, in my opinion, that's the hardest time of the year. That's where I feel like the dog would have the biggest effect. You know what I mean? So like, why? Maybe that's like a happy trade off. But that doesn't change the fact that dogs are going onto private property and stuff. And you made a really good point, which is going to drive us into our final topic here, is shooting at a moving target. Personally, that's something I never ever ever want to do. you know Even if a deer is just gently walking, that's not exactly something that I would ever really want to take a shot at. That's just not something. the one time the one time that I shot at a moving deer in my entire
How many have you
life,
found? What? How many have you found?
it ended up being a 2 day track. The only time I ever shot at a moving deer, I had to shoot it twice, and I had to wait till the next day to recover it. And I didn't like it. It wasn't a good time. I didn't enjoy it. It's just not something that I personally would want to do. Which really leads me into, again, the last topic here: deer drives. I have my personal opinion on deer drives. I want to hear yours first. How do you feel about
I mean, I
utilizing deer
guess
drives?
I mean, if we're going from dogs to deer drives, I mean, it's almost probably the little brother of dog hunting, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's dog hunting without the dogs.
Yep, we're the dogs.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it is what it is. I know that there's a bunch of different hunting styles. I do spot and stalking solo, so I know just the benefit of one extra guy, two extra guys can have on how efficient you can be on spotting and stalking, or as you've called it, bump and dump.
Bump and dump.
Um,
Well, I think they're two.
it's not always
Actually,
bump and dump. I'm just
I
saying
think they're
those
two
are, yeah.
completely different things. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't always
But
want to disturb the animal, but then you know where the
sure,
animal is.
yeah.
Spotting and stalking is hoping to see the animal still unaware of your presence,
Mm-hmm.
and then move either in for the harvest or have it move in towards you for the harvest.
Sure. And I said I had my own opinion. I feel like a deer drive almost forces the people who have the guns in their hand to shoot at a moving animal. It's I don't know, man. It's like, again, I understand both sides.
Yeah, the
When
main
you when
thing
you
you're
do a drive
focusing on
properly,
is the inefficient shot placement and the
right?
moving
Well,
animals and the injured animals. Is it
yeah.
efficient? Is it something they should still be allowing now at 2025? Or should we be, treating the resource with a little bit more respect? Um, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I do dabble in a little bit of the spot stalk myself. I still hunt with buckshot. I'm not saying that I endorse shooting at a moving animal. I think there's there's a time and a place to make the decision. We should be making those decisions on the fly. An
Sure.
animal that's sprinting, leaping, is probably not worth shooting at. An
Sure.
animal that might kind of be unaware and might be taking one step, or there's things to be doing. Am I shooting at a deer that's sprinting and then galloping through the air? And I mean, probably not. With buckshot, it would have to be, maybe like a head on. The deer's coming right at me. It's getting closer, closing the distance, and it's a little bit easier of a shot.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there are also parts of me that don't want to injure the animal, that want to be efficient and have good shot placement. And, again, a lot of my hunting is done far in the deep into the woods. The last thing I need is that deer running another couple hundred yards
A
further
long
away
way.
from my truck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would prefer to just drop it where it is, or hopefully have it go towards my truck, if anything.
Exactly. And again, two sides of every coin. It turns a deer hunting thing, which is usually a solo activity, into a group activity, right? You can
Which is
walk around
great.
with
I mean,
friends,
the
family.
camaraderie we talk about is some of the best memories we have. So
Absolutely. And we joke around all the time. Like, granted, I don't remember being the one doing many drives growing up. I feel like the adults were the ones doing the drives for us, trying to get us the deer as we were older. At least that's my
well,
experience.
I mean, you've also
With
gotten lost a
birds,
time or two. So
yeah,
having you
with
walk
bird,
around on your own is not always
yeah.
the best
When I
decision.
was young, man, it was rough. Before GPS is on the phone and shit, I
Tree is a
weren't
tree is
good
a tree.
times. But we were, tree in a tree. Remember the tree in a
Yeah, the
tree?
tree in a tree. Yeah, I remember that. But
When we were younger, we were the bird dogs. Getting on our hands and knees and walking through the thickets. I just feel like, I don't know. I guess I look at it from the perspective of, like, is it fair for the deer? The deer have found a way to avoid people all year long. They found a thicket to go into. They found a way to maneuver. They've patterned you and found a way to walk around where you walk and all this stuff. And then we throw one last ditch and say, you know what? We're going in 30 guys walking a straight line. They can't get away. It's just, I guess what it comes back to for me is the concept of fair chase. And I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that's not a style I would like to hunt.
and for
But
me,
I got a
it's
buddy.
really about preserving the resource. I mean, having, like you said, 30 guys line up walking through the woods, whether it's inefficient or efficient. We talk about the shot might not be inefficient, but I mean, 30 guys walking in a straight line will get some stuff moving.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, 100%.
You're going to get some stuff on their feet. You're going to find some deer. But
Yeah.
then what are we leaving for the following year? I mean, we know that in some areas, deer numbers are up. Hunting is down. But there's other areas where hunting is either not down or staying the same, and the deer numbers are down. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the spot that I just recently hunted with the muzzleloader, that I hunted only one day and I haven't been able to hunt, but that's been now restriction to 3 antlers on one side or better. I mean, they're not doing that because they want to only have people shooting big deer. They're doing that because there's less deer to be seen,
Right.
and they're
And
hoping that if they limit what people can shoot, that there will be more deer.
sure. And it's nice to see Jersey doing that because we let's face it, we got on Jersey pretty good here, right?
I mean,
But it's
we have
it's
the
it's
most exposure to it,
yeah,
and
but it's nice to
they make
see
it
that
easy.
they're exactly they do make it easy, but it's nice to see that they're still doing proper practices. One of the things that we're really going to keep a close eye on for our listeners this year is the new regulations that are changing in Jersey. I mean, last year we had every hunter was sent a survey and asked to give their opinion on some of these new regulations that they were thinking about implementing. We haven't gotten confirmation on, like, the finalization of those regulations, but I'm really interested to see how this changes. I know that they're looking to group some zones together so there's less zones throughout the whole state. I know they're looking to change bag limits. They're looking to possibly get rid of the antler restrictions, one on each side, or add antler restrictions in. So I'm really curious to see what that's like because they have an opportunity to make the
I mean,
hunting
I
better.
prefer the antler restrictions in
I
all zones,
agree. I
in all
agree
zones,
100%.
and
Pennsylvania does it.
not because I want to limit what people can get. The bucks get targeted so much. I
Yep.
mean, you could have 3 deer in front of you, and let's just say if it's brown, it's down kind of guy, or I'm a freezer. I just want to fill my
I
freezer.
want a freezer queen.
If there's 3 deer in front of you, 2 of them are does, one of them's a 4-corn buck. I mean, most of the time, people are going to shoot the buck.
Most people are shooting the
I mean,
buck.
and if you're just filling the freezer, shoot the dove.
Right.
You
That's
know what I
that's
mean?
why we
Let
call
the
them freezer
buck.
queens.
I mean, it. Listen, if there's 50 deer in an area, let's just say whatever area it is, there's 50 deer in that area, and 10 of them are bucks. If 5 of them get shot in 1 year, I mean, what's there left to reproduce?
Right.
You shoot 20 does and 5 bucks. Now you've got 35 deer there. You know what I mean? And you know, you're going to have 50 deer the following year.
Yep.
And then you're going to be at 35, 50, 35, 50, 30. I mean, it's just going to go back and forth. And then if the following year you get a couple more mature deer, now you only have immature deer reproducing.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. And you know, the younger deer reproducing, it's especially where we are, it tends to be that way. It tends to be the younger deer kind of like getting frisky first. The big bucks kind of the mature deer kind of know when it's coming, so they can time it properly. They can conserve their energy appropriately and exert it where they need it. You know what I mean? So
I mean,
I
but
don't know. I'm really curious.
we're talking about mature deer. I
Yeah.
mean, to shoot, and I've seen it, I've done it, but to shoot a 7, 8 year old deer in New Jersey is crazy.
Yeah.
You're not
And
finding many of them.
yeah, and the truth is, like, we're
Unless
not
they're in like
saying
a
that.
honey hole where they're like protected by private property, or
Sure.
you're in a town where
Or
it's like
or
all
you're deep as
mansions and
shit where nobody else
yeah,
goes, you
yeah,
know. But the where was I going with that? The truth is, like, we're not saying that if a deer has 3 antlers on one side that they're all automatically a mature deer. But in the areas where we are, you're not really finding 3 on one side until a deer is 2, 3 years old anyway.
yeah.
You know, so at the very least, there's 2 or 3 breeding seasons for a deer to go through before it gets taken. Um, you know, anyway, with that being said, we're at about an hour, and this is the end of essentially the hunting season. We may get out a couple more times, but I got to be honest, we're getting into what I consider my favorite time of the year. And I know it sounds crazy because October through December should be my favorite time of year. But I've done a lot of reflecting, I guess you could say, over the last 4 or 5 months. And what I've come to realize is I think I enjoy the process so much more than the harvest. I really do. I enjoy the research and the diving into different topics, looking into deer nutrition, property management, food plot mixtures. Where am I going to go hunting? E-scouting, putting boots on the ground, and actually all of that stuff that I do outside of the hunting season. I absolutely love it. I really do. And then when it comes time for the harvest, like, you know, obviously you want to harvest and you want to close the story, but like this year for me, the story's not over. I didn't get a buck this year. So it's a continuation of it, and it's me using what I have now to plan ahead and figure out what I want to do moving forward. Like, I'm so excited for what this year has to bring. You know, between the turkey hunting that we want to get into, I'm hoping to get back out on the water and do some fishing. Got some great guests lined up for property management stuff. Like, I'm really excited for where the 2025 is going to take us. I don't know about you, but I mean, even with this Arrow series, guys.
I
I
mean,
mean,
you
we
know
have
me. I mean, I'm almost the exact opposite. I mean, I love doing research as much as the next guy. I'll listen to lectures. I'll listen to, instructional videos. I'll, go out and do scouting. I do all that stuff anyway. It's not that the harvest is more fun for me, but I hunt hard. And to
yep,
have my season cut short with, an injury to myself, which is obviously the worst case scenario. No one ever wants to
yep,
get injured. We know that, especially climbing these trees, with some of the gear that we have, which I tend to be more of a minimalist. There are some risks that come with it, and unfortunately, it got me this year. But I'm looking forward to next year, hoping that we can get through the year healthy. But I'm looking to really give it a lot more than I was able to this year, just to make up for it, because I usually get in there and hunt hard, and
yeah,
I was annoyed to have this season cut short with the with everything that we got going on with the content creation building.
sure. And it's unfortunate that it happened this way too. You know, it's like it seems like every year up until this year, we were out in the woods a lot, doing a lot of work. Me personally, I got out a lot more this year than last year. It's just ironic how it kind of things didn't exactly line up the way we expected them to. But anyway, with that said, I do want to give a quick shout out to our Aero Science series. The first episode posted on the podcast last week. I'm hoping that this week I'll be able to get that first episode up onto YouTube. I know YouTube is like 2 episodes behind. I think the last one I posted was episode 17. So I still have to do 18 and 19 on the podcast. But that Aero series really just aims to teach our listeners, to give them a little insight, a little education on the progression of arrows, where arrows started from the very beginning, where they are now, how that progression of both arrows and bows have affected arrow flight, the stages of arrow flight, and what we can do as archers to manipulate or to control those motions and those reactions within flight to make our arrows as consistent as possible. It's a series that we've been hinting at a lot over the last few months, and we finally sat down, got the first few episodes recorded, and moving forward, we're hoping to release one a week on YouTube, and we'll put them out on the podcast also whenever we can. So head on over to our YouTube, our YouTube channel, Wing and Tail Outdoors. That series will be under its own playlist on our YouTube channel, and Dorge is also going to be posting it on his website, fireknock.com. So anyone who's interested in learning about arrow flight, you head on over there and listen to it. Really, really great information. And that's not to say that we want you to change over to what we say you have to shoot. As a teacher, I just always find enjoyment in sharing knowledge, sharing information, and giving anyone who's listening the information they need to make an educated decision. Outside of that, we just, if you guys like what you heard, if you found some value in what you heard today, just scroll down to the bottom of the page and leave us a nice 5-star review. If you're on Apple Podcasts, just click on that 5-star and leave a quick written review. Let us know what you think. Say hello. Tell us you don't like what you hear. Whatever, however you want to communicate with us, we'd be more than happy to receive that and respond. Dorge would love to have questions on the Arrow series as well, so that way he can answer them in that next video. Even easier if you're on Spotify, scroll down to the bottom, 5-star review real quick, just a quick 5-star click, and you're done. With that being said, if you guys celebrate Christmas, we hope that you had a fantastic Christmas. If you're celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. Any other holidays you may be celebrating, happy holidays. Happy New Year. Actually, the next episode is going to post the day after New Year, so we'll get to that then. But Happy New Year. And remember, success is just a commitment away. Until next time, have a great week.
Peace.